Hello everybody, Happy New Year's out there, and welcome back to another Mojo Action News exclusive report. Happy to see you all made it another trip around the sun, as this will be the first Lake Mead and Colorado River update for 2023, and it's going to be quite an episode. We're going to cover some of the biggest topics that have come up to recap the year, including filming in national parks, closing Lake Mead boat ramps, the Colorado River compact plans, and of course, at the end, we'll give a special water level update that recaps 2022 and looks ahead through 2023. As we cover all these important topics, we're going to share some previous adventures throughout the year around the lake, and we're going to get nothing but the facts, man. Let's get right in. Alright, so first off, everyone has been bustling about how it's illegal to film in national parks, or more specifically Lake Mead now. Let's clear this up right away by saying no, it isn't illegal to film in any park. Those are our parks owned by you and I. The ruling that was reversed, however, said it is legal for the NPS to collect a fee and issue permits for so-called commercial filming within the parks. Of course, this makes sense to preserve the visitor experience and leave the no-trace spirit of the parks. And you wouldn't want a Hollywood production coming to, say, the Grand Canyon filming stunts while you were there. But to the US government and Park Service, apparently commercial filming could now indeed equal just you, by yourself, recording on your cell phone or camera. What started all this was the case of independent filmmaker Gordy Price, who received a fine from the NPS after filming within the Colonial National Historic Park. After receiving a fine for filming, Price in turn sued the National Park Service and U.S. Attorney General, arguing that federal and state laws governing content with free speech were unconstitutional. In 2021, he actually won the case against the government. Due to the lawsuit, the national parks had to change their laws to state that filming in parks is allowed for free, provided gear was limited to one tripod and to what fits in your backpack. Makes perfect sense, right? Keep out the large productions that disturb nature and guests, but leave individuals alone. The new ruling was only an interim law, however, because NPS appealed the verdict, and lucky for them, on August 23, 2022, under a new judge named Douglas Ginsburg, the NPS won their appeal, with Ginsburg's ruling stating, quote, "The act of filming is not protected under the First Amendment." Not only that, Ginsburg's ruling states anyone even holding a phone outside a visitor center to record commentary must obtain a permit and pay a fee. It creates odd specific laws. For instance, you must obtain a permit before filming a protest on the Washington National Mall if you plan to post that protest on social media. To top it off, Ginsburg's verdict states that anyone spontaneously filming will be criminally liable and face up to 6 months in prison. How this will affect civil rights issues involving protests and people documenting crimes or abuses is a whole other matter that seems to make filming a man-made lake pale in comparison. So yes, technically, commercial filming once again requires an expensive permit and non-refundable application fee, minimum 10-day wait, and no guarantees or even any guidelines as to whether your application will be accepted or rejected. And if you want to know what that commercial permit fee amount is, it averages about $400 plus recovery fees for a single-day permit, with around half that amount, $200, being non-refundable, even if your application is rejected. But wait, some of you sharp ones might say, it's Lake Mead National Recreation Area, not Lake Mead National Park. Do the same film rules apply? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is going to clear up a lot of things, and it's going to help explain the issues leading up to our next topic, which is the Lake Mead boat ramp closure plans from the National Park Service. This is a bit of a complex history that I'm going to try and condense as neatly as possible, so here it goes. Basically, you have the United States Bureau of Reclamation, who you'll frequently see us abbreviate USBR, and the National Park Service, who you'll see us abbreviate NPS. Now, each of these agencies serves its own distinct purpose. The Bureau of Reclamation mainly manages water and power, and the National Park Service manages recreation and visitors. So what happens when the USBR builds a dam to control water and power? Well, it creates a reservoir, or lake of course. And what do people do when they see a lake? They want to swim, they want to boat, they want to fish, walk along the lake shore. But wait, the Bureau of Reclamation doesn't do recreation. They only have time and resources to manage the dam and hydropower. So what do you do as the USBR in this situation? Well, you go over to your buddies at the National Park Service and you persuade them by letting them know, hey, there's going to be this brand new high-demand lake in the middle of the desert that everyone is going to want to come see and to come recreate at. You might as well just make it a park. Of course, a man-made reservoir with an unplanned budget isn't something that really fit into the more natural and traditional niche of the Park Service. Thanks, but no thanks was their response. But the USBR was persistent. Well, it's going to be built anyways. The lake's going to be there. People will use it whether it's a park or not. What a waste you wouldn't take advantage of the land usage and fees. Still not interested, said the Park Service. This went on for a bit until eventually, for better or for worse, the National Park Service finally caved and made what John Muir might have considered an unholy alliance with the Bureau of Reclamation by creating the first ever national recreation area out of an unnatural area. Lake Mead was indeed the first ever project to come out of this marriage of the USBR and NPS resources in 1936, but certainly it wouldn't be the last. In fact, once the USBR's foot was in the door with the NPS, so to say, they took full advantage of it. Currently, out of 18 national recreation areas in the United States that are managed by the Park Service, 12 of them are based solely around reservoirs such as Lake Mead. So a national recreation area is indeed treated like a national park when managed by the NPS, the result of an interesting partnership that the Park Service may soon come to regret. But why is that? Well, because they seemingly no longer want to, and more importantly, fiscally can't maintain the areas. The same exact reasons why the USBR didn't want to make a park out of their own reservoirs to begin with. Which brings us to the boat ramp closure talks now happening with the NPS. Currently, the National Park Service maintains and administers the remaining boat launches and facilities open at Lake Mead. This would include the areas like Hemingway Harbor, Colville Bay, Echo Bay, South Cove, and Temple Bar. But with water levels continuing to fall, the ramps require constant maintenance and extensions to reach lower levels. Boulder Harbor, the rise and demise of which we covered in the Before and After 2 video, was notably left off all planning as the Park Service has now completely abandoned the area. Over at South Cove, in one particularly notable incident from last summer, while extending the boat launch, a worker and a wheel loader went too far down the eroded ramp and the loader sank into the water. After a difficult recovery, they were able to pull it back out, and thankfully the operator was okay. But the ramp work was halted, and this became just another example of the price of maintaining these old ramps amid worsening drought conditions. As the cost of maintenance backs up to the tune of over $21 million according to the NPS, they now have explored plans to possibly shut down the boat launches and marinas around the lake. They have even considered a non-motorized watercraft-only plan for the lake if levels get extremely dire. That would essentially mean paddlecraft only, but with all the calm, secluded bays drying up, like the one pictured here from 2019, there aren't many places the average visitor should even consider paddling on the unpredictable open lake. This would spell the end of the lake for countless boaters, businesses, and essential service providers, especially in the more remote areas of the lake where folks rely on these communities as a way of life. At the time of this update, there are no immediate plans to close any of the marinas or boat launches. These are just contingency plans laid out by the NPS as discussed in the last video, and in fact, the initial plans are to continue extending boat ramps down to the 950-foot elevation level, which is essentially the Deadpool level at Hoover Dam. For reference, the current water level as of making this video sits around 1,044 feet above sea level, less than 100 feet from Deadpool. The plans are also open to a public comment period, which was just extended through January 22nd. A show of supporters from throughout Las Vegas, Boulder City, and beyond has turned up at several hearings to voice their concern with closing any Lake Mead boating resources. A boat rally was even held on the Las Vegas Strip to raise awareness and gather attention around the issue and comment period. Some parties have made suggestions that private contractors could come in and complete the ramp upgrades for much cheaper than the NPS is claiming they cost. Either way, it seems the honeymoon phase is over between the Park Service and the USBR, as neither seems to be able to manage the agreement they made together. What do you all think about this? Do you think reservoirs should be just that, off limits and managed exclusively for water and power by the USBR? Or do you think the Park Service should take responsibility and fix up the lake? If a solution can't be reached, perhaps they should revert the recreation area to BLM land instead. Let us know in the comments below. Of course, the USBR also has its own plans for the future of the lake apart from the National Park Service. After all, they have a dam and water supply to manage. On December 16th, the Colorado River Water Users Association conference took place at Caesars Palace, and in attendance were representatives from the river basin states. Federal authorities from the USBR reassured the representatives of their plan to help the states come up with new ideas and find solutions.
We're with you every step of the way as the basin develops new ideas.
As Bureau Commissioner Camille Touton explains, there are some low-hanging fruit areas of water conservation and efficiency that could be tackled right away, and she does mention irrigation districts, perhaps like the ones we've discussed in previous reports.
There are some low-hanging fruit solutions of water conservation, water efficiency in our municipal areas. We're working with the irrigation districts on building more efficient systems, whether it's lining of canals or being able to reuse water. And we're using investments with the bipartisan infrastructure law, $8.3 billion from the federal government.
The USBR has now given the states an extended January 22nd deadline to formally submit their plans before proceeding further. This slow, methodical process is most likely to shield the USBR from any eventual lawsuits that would come from certain states that do not want to cut water usage should the old river compact be broken by necessity. The Southern Nevada Water Authority, or SNWA, here in Nevada, has already formulated and submitted their plans as required. I will put a link down below in the description if you would like to read the whole letter. As SNWA Chief John Ensminger explains, Nevada has already poised itself for a secure water future before these issues ever came to a head.
Southern Nevada is the most water secure region in the Colorado River because of our community's investment in $1.5 billion in infrastructure, and because of our community's 20 years of work in water conservation. We're in a very good place.
It is unknown at this time if any of the lower basin states, such as Arizona or California, have completed or submitted their required plans to the USBR. We will keep watch over the outcome of these plans as well. Those of you who recall the August update might remember I referenced an article from the New York Times that mentioned the coming California megastorms. As you can see from this recent Skycam footage, we have been experiencing what the meteorologists are calling an atmospheric river moving over the area. At the time of making this video, 3 more large storm systems are on their way towards California, forecasted to bring large amounts of moisture to begin the year. So what do you all think? Will we see a snowpack winter continue like the one that hit the North Plains and Midwest? Will this make any difference in spring runoff? Or have we already done too little, too late? Let us know down below. Now, before we close out this episode, let's take a look at a special year-in-review water level report for Lake Mead. If we look at the key numbers from 2022, we can see Lake Mead reached its highest level of 1,067 feet around January 25th, before plummeting over 20 feet in a few short months to a low of 1,040 feet on July 27th. Since then, it was allowed a slight recovery of just a few feet to around the current level of 1,044 feet. If we compare the previous years now, we can see the same trend happening each year. However, each year the trend gets worse. Look at 2020. The water level started at 1,090 feet and ended the year at 1,083, a difference of 7 feet. Following the same trend in 2021, it ended at 1,066 feet, falling 17 feet total, leading to the drastic cycle of last year in 2022, where we ended at 1,044 feet, falling 22 feet. Looking throughout 2023, it is predicted this trend will once again get worse. Keep in mind, no matter how much water flows down the mighty Colorado, if they don't let it out of Powell to flow down into Mead, then Mead can never fill. At some point, a reckoning may very well have to come for one of these dams, regardless of what nature does. As always, we want to thank you for watching and supporting our channel. We have some great adventure episodes coming this year, along with our drought updates and several exciting side projects in the works. All possible thanks to you, our viewers. Take care out there, and we'll see you for the next report. And a Happy New Year out there.